You're listening to Mind Over Markets, a podcast on trading psychology to help you build a bulletproof mindset. Here's your hosts, George Papazov and Mark Borscht.
Psychology is something that you are going to have to work on. And, if you find a strategy, the strategy in itself might be good, but in order to find the real results that you're looking for, you really got to shift the focus to looking inside and working on bettering yourself, your inner self, so that your outer circumstances can reflect what that work on the inside has shown.
Yeah, absolutely. And 100% agreement with that. And I'm really happy that Mark brought up the point about individual sports, because that's more of a sport where it's you versus yourself.
Exactly.
And there's no finger pointing. And it's kind of like going to the gym. All right. And the reason strategies don't work, my strategy, I'll be happy to email it to you. I have no problems. It's simple. But you have to have the right mental toughness for that level of competition. So if you showed up at the gym and you've never squatted in your life and you put 4 plates on each side, right? You're pushing a lot of weight. You're not going to be able to do a single rep. Guarantee your knees are going to break. You're not prepared for that kind of mental toughness. There's my strategy, 4 plates on each side. How are you going to be able to? I don't do 4 plates, but I'm doing
almost there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm working up to it. So it's not about finding somebody's strategy. It's about increasing your mental toughness and growing yourself personally, so you could support more weight on your shoulders, so you can have access to creating your own strategy. That's what it's about. You're competing against yourself. It's a sport. And before you could create a strategy for trading, you have to have mental toughness to support that strategy. If you think about the analogy, the trading strategy is the weight, and your mental toughness is the support structure of that weight. All right? So you have to choose the right weight to build your mental toughness with. And this is why we look at athletics, because you look at athletes. How does athletes and trading compare? For some of you who haven't made the connection yet, think about this. How an athlete performs directly affects how much money they make and how long their career is. There's no other way to break down athleticism than that. If you go home, if you have a crappy performance and you go home, you own that crappy performance. In a 9-to-5 job, we don't make as much money as athletes, but the demands aren't as high of us. And neither is the accountability.
And, to that point, it really depends on the type of corporate career you go into, right? Because you go into a career where, most businesses, you have 2 sides. You have the revenue bringing side, which is often your sales department, and you got your support side, right? And so most corporate structures will reward the sales side. The sales side will have often a base salary, usually around what the support side starts with, but they also get, the opportunity to make bonuses, commissions, whatever the structure of the business is. And so if you're in the sales side, I would also agree that they can be likened to high performance athletes.
100%.
Because it's still a similar thing. You're basically eating what you kill.
Right.
And so having that requirement to be, on top of your game, to be mentally tough, even in a sales role, you've got to make cold calls. I'm sure that's still a thing.
Yeah.
Cold calls, you're going to get a lot of rejections. Man. If you get rejected on, you're a salesperson, you make a couple calls out, your first call gets rejected, second call gets rejected, third one gets rejected. Are you still going to have the mental toughness to call the fourth person? Or are you just going to, kind of quit out and say, you know what, these last 3 ones didn't really work out. It's time to do something new. That's what I'd liken to a new trader with a strategy. They're trying out the new strategy, try it once, takes a loss, try it twice, second loss, try it third time, third loss. All right. It's not about, newer traders aren't going to be thinking, all right, am I mentally tough enough? Do I have enough belief, self-belief, confidence in myself to execute this 4 trade based on my strategy without really weighing on the fact that the prior 3 trades were losses, right? That's where the real professional comes in. It's the people that can bounce back, take a couple of losses in a row and not be affected on a psychological point with taking that 4th trade. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that. I 100% agree with you. And I think that if you take it a level higher than that, if you look at what is athleticism and trading and you go one level higher, I like to call it meals or rifles, because at the end of the day, are you looking for somebody to guarantee you a meal, which is more consistent, steady, or are you looking for somebody to give you a rifle and so you can go get your meal yourself? If you're vegan, maybe gloves so you can pull it out of the ground. I don't know, the tools for you to make your own meal. I just use it as an analogy. All right. This podcast is accepting of everyone and welcoming. So, do you want meals or rifles? And if you want guaranteed meals, you can't expect to eat the quality of meat that you're going to get with your rifle because you're the one going out to get it. You get what somebody brings to you because you're not in control of it. And so this is why we're linking the two together. So let's talk about the 12 key attributes identified by athletes and how we think they're important for trading as well. The first, and these are listed in the order of importance as well. They identified as the number one most important, or should we go backwards?
That's a good question.
We're going backwards.
We're going to go backwards from the
cliffhanger right there. Number 12. All right. So the athlete said switching sport focus on and off as required. All right. You need to be able to switch it on and off between games during a tournament. All right. The mental preparation for competing requires a lot of energy of you to stay in that competitive mind frame. You cannot be in a competitive mind frame 24/7. You'll burn out. Oh, yeah. And so the ability to identify when to switch it on and off. The beauty of competing is that you know in trading when you're going to trade. We trade from 9 to 11. The U.S. market opens at 9:30. European closes at 11:30. That overlap is our go time.
Yeah.
And so even on weekends, I'm trained so well to be in competitive mode that even on a Saturday from 9 to 11 a.m., I'm super competitive. And Reese and I had talked about that a couple weeks ago. She's like, why are you in such a competition? Like, we're not arguing here. And I'm like, I got to win. Because 9 to 11 is my compete time. So that's number 12. Switching support or sport focus on and off is required.
All right. Number 11 is remaining fully focused in the face of personal life distractions. So this is once you're in the competition, you cannot let your mind wander to other things. And it doesn't really matter what has happened to you. You can't bring the problem into the performance arena. And this kind of translates back to trading, right? It's been identified by athletes that you have to remain fully focused in the face of life distractions, right? So if you're somebody that, you had a fight with your spouse, or, you had a disagreement with a friend, or you've got something that's weighing on you mentally, that's not something that you can bring to the trading desk, right? Because that's going to affect your performance. And one of the things that I really liked about the quote that George mentioned at the beginning of the podcast with regards to people who are mentally tough have a psychological edge that enables them to cope better than their opponents with the many demands that sports place on a performer. I think the key word there, or I guess keywords, would be psychological edge, right? It gives you an edge. As traders, we're looking for edges in the markets, and at the end of the day, to be consistently profitable, you're looking to exploit as many edges as you can in this arena, right? So you've got your trading edge, you've got risk management edge, and psychological edge is also something that you can have over other participants in the market. So remaining fully focused in the face of personal life distractions, super important as far as maintaining and developing your psychological edge.
I love the term of psychological edge. I don't know if anyone's ever coined that before in trading. So you might have just come up with something huge in the industry. That's phenomenal. I 100% agree. Number 10, thriving on the pressure of competition. I love this. If you're going to achieve anything worthwhile, there's bound to be pressure. Mental toughness is being resilient and using the competition pressure to get the best out of yourself. All right. One way to look at this is that, look, great things, diamonds are created by pressure. All right. That's the term I was looking for. Diamonds are created from pressure. So high amount of pressure doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. And how do you cope with that? You learn to embrace it. All right. Pressure leads to progress. If you put pressure on yourself, the environment puts pressure on you. It's how you choose to cope with it that ends up creating the emotion. If you choose to fold and feel uneasy about it and you're nervous, there's ways to work on that, but pressure is not going to push you to perform positive things. If instead you look at the pressure, you say, this is a challenge. I have a positive mindset. All right, I'm going to go forward with this. I think that pressure pushes you to competition. You naturally jump to the instinct to say, I'm going to win, bring this pressure on. And that's the mindset you're trying to cultivate. How do you do that? You have to have some form of positive thinking. You have to have a winning mindset in order to take pressure and turn it into competitive drive rather than fold under the pressure. And so when the pressure is the highest, think back in your life, whenever you've been under pressure, have you naturally had a tendency to go towards, hiding from the pressure or putting your hand down or trying to move away from the pressure? So so you're not noticed? Or have you stepped up to the challenge and took that and said, let's do it, let's compete? And I think the way you answer that tells you your stage of preparedness for trading. If you back down from pressure, you're not okay with it, it doesn't mean you're doomed to be a trader. It just means there's ways that we need to work on this. This is something we have to address before we talk about moving averages, indicators, strategies. Let's talk about being able to deal with pressure.
Thanks for listening to the Mind Over Market podcast. You can find us at TradeProAcademy.com.